Yeah, Bernie, I don't know if you got a second chance to watch Limerick against Cork, but I watched it again during the week, and I just couldn't get over the amount of basic errors that really experienced all-stars and hurlers of the year were making for Limerick. And I just wonder, in the space of a week, when they'll do a recovery session, they'll do a bit of a puck around, they'll maybe do 20 minutes of a competitive match because they're not going to overdo it. What can they change in a week?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. If you're not on it, it's kind of hard to change that. Like there was just mistakes made the other day against Tip that are just so uncharacteristic. Like there was a couple of times Darren Burns had to go chasing back after a ball, maybe missed a touch or something like that. Things that you don't expect. The stick passing was going more to here maybe than to here, and it was just affecting. It was affecting the speed of the transition, I'd say, and it can also seep into your confidence a small bit here. Like, but would you say they played better probably against Tip than they did against Clare? I don't like. At least Hannon was back. Hannon was back more to himself in the second half, at
Made a lot of
least.
mistakes in the first half. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
he
yeah.
did make a lot of mistakes in the first half. Burns, albeit made a couple of mistakes, looked again
A
more
lot of
back. More,
mistakes.
yeah, he did. He made like very uncharacteristic for him as well. We talked about the Monday show as well. Like what Kylie does with Hegarty and Keane Lynch would be really, really interesting. They tried lots of like Hegarty. I don't know if Hegarty actually felt the weight of the ball in the first half against Tip. If he did, I don't remember it. He might have maybe once. Lynch, yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see what he does with them and whether he puts Peter Casey in from the start, whether he puts Graham Mulcahy in from the start, and hopefully maybe gets a bounce off the bench, maybe from Hegarty or Lynch. It would be a big statement. Like my gut would suggest that this is a game where everything is on the line for Limerick. That he'd probably go with the lads that have basically delivered for him over the last 6 seasons. But then you're kind of thinking maybe they need to be re-energized. Maybe they need a new spark. Maybe they need new faces in. But on your first point, yeah, difficult to turn things around in a week. Very, very difficult. But they were finishing strong, Shane, conditioning wise, physically wise against Tip. That's something that I'd say they'd take a lot of heart from.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
like
and
we.
just
Yeah,
I
go
give
for
you
it.
so on that point as regards. You look at it. It could have been all so different for Limerick if Graham Mulcahy had to cut inside and pop the ball to Peter Casey. Like that was the game. You know what I mean? And I know. He scored a point at that stage, but it was game over if he could get that, and we could be looking at something completely different. So matches and games turn on little things like that, and I think to your point as regards what's John Kiley going to do with Hegarty and Lynch, like that's we know they're two quality players. We know there's obviously something not right. So again, if it clicks and if one play like that goes and Limerick win a game, like their whole season could take off. They were on the brink last week. Like Tip won that match, they were gone and they held on and they potentially could have won the match. So again, there's a lot more in them, and I think again it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here and what Kylie does in the week, as you said.
I
Yeah,
just wonder, Shane, on the Graham Mulcahy point, and I'm not having to go at Graham at all because he's a brilliant player, but is that just a little tiny sign of things been a tiny bit individualistic and maybe been a little bit less about the collective, or maybe he didn't see him at all? But like, I just feel like last year, whoever that was going through would have seen the player inside and they would have went for the throat, whereas maybe things are a tiny little bit more individualistic, or just confidence is down and a lad just wants to get a score, and it's, you know what I mean, it's a little bit more about yourself and a tiny little bit less about the team. That was just my impression. That could be miles off, but that was just what I thought maybe by looking at it.
Yeah, but even look at it. Like some of their best scoring came from Cathal O'Neill, but some of the shots he took on were like low percentage shots.
Yeah.
But he's just so talented. So like that, like they have a team that's so used to playing with each other over the years, and he's obviously been in training for the last 12 or 18 months or whatever. But maybe he's not as used to playing with them in these big championship games, so it's a small bit individualistic. Other players are off colour, so when players are off colour, they're doing things that are less characteristic. But we can't just say it's all Tip or brilliant and isn't it? Aren't they flying versus Limerick aren't? Because Limerick still drew the game and they're not that far away. But to move the conversation over to Cork, Willie, do they have enough to actually knock Limerick off here?
I don't know and I suppose the big thing with they have a very good record against Limerick, bar the knockout matches in Croke Park, the semi-finals and finals over the last couple of years. So they have been known to turn them over. Very difficult to know. Like as regards, like if Limerick do show up, if Limerick improve 5 or 6%, like and like that, make a few different decisions and make a few less individual not errors but decisions as regards in the match, I couldn't see Limerick beaten on the weekend, because Cork again, that was a soccer blow as regards Jim Ryan scoring in the last minute or in injury time to beat them in Ennis last week for Pat Ryan, who's obviously is an excellent manager with a very young team, but I couldn't see Limerick. I couldn't see Limerick being beaten the weekend. I think they will get it right. I think Cork are probably learning an awful lot from Munster Championship, and a lot of their younger players stepping into this now. So I would fancy Limerick, but it's just I suppose Cork have they've been known to do something in the last couple of years against Limerick.
This reminds me a bit, Shane, of Tip in 18, hanging on, and they played Clare in that last game. I think it was in Thurles actually as well, and it looked like they got themselves back into a position to get through, and then Clare finished real strong. Did O'Donnell get a goal or
Sharon 4 games in 22 days for Tip as well, screwed over by the scheduling.
And sorry, Tip hit the post, I think, in the last minute, and Clare was
lads, you never forget, in fairness to say. Limerick played a similar kind of schedule in the sense of back-to-back games within 6 days, back-to-back games again. They're hanging in, and as Willie said there, if they can just get over Sunday, and obviously a draw will not do them because Cork have better score difference, so they have to win the game. If they get over Sunday, things might open up and they'll have a preliminary quarter final and then an All-Ireland quarter final, and you never know. They'll be back in Croke Park potentially by then. But Sunday is the big one, and like for Cork, this is a chance for Cork to really come of age. And there has been a little bit something different about Cork in the sense of got a result against Tip when they were probably under pressure, got back into a position against Clare when they really looked under pressure as well. Like I think they'll half fancy their chances, and they're not facing the Limerick that we all know and love or hate, depending on where you're from. They're facing the Limerick team that is on the ropes, and this is a chance for Cork to knock them out. Whether they can actually go and do it is another story.
Yeah, well, look, looking at the forward line for Cork, right? So the last day they had Conor Lahan, who's probably been playing for 12 or 13 seasons, Patrick Horgan, who's obviously been there since, I think, 08 at this stage, and Harnedy, who's on the road a long time. And I just wonder, can you carry three, like, they're three brilliant players, but can you have three of them all into one forward line and leave them on there for 50, 55 minutes? Especially a week after, for Horgan, he played 80 minutes. I think Harnedy played more or less the same. Like, do Cork need to freshen it up? If we're seeing that Limerick are a little bit on the ropes, and they can recover, but if they're a little bit on the ropes, do you freshen it up with a bit more pace and maybe bring Lahan off the bench? Because when it opens up, Willie, then he's probably more likely to do damage.
No, absolutely. And look, we know, I suppose, the big thing for Pat Ryan is to try to stay in the match for as long as they can as regards, and just not be gone away on 50 minutes as regards, and give themselves an opportunity to unload lads like Lahan off the bench, because, again, the quality is always there. I think, when pushes come to shove with this particular Cork group, and Michael mentioned it earlier as regards, it's about time the players stood up. Like, the players in Cork really have to stand up here now. This is the match that it's, albeit a new Cork with Pat Ryan at the helm. It's essentially a lot of the same players with that influx of younger guys. But now is the time. They have to really, I suppose, do something against Limerick and not go away in the big matches. Like, Limerick's, I suppose, forte over the last couple of years is just continue to play the game, keep working the ball short, keep working triangles, keep working the ball through the lines. Like, it's something that Cork really have to get in amongst them and really go at them. You look at, again, without a Mark Coleman, without a Cadigan, without these, I suppose, marquee players within the group, but ultimately the Shemi Harnedys and the Lahans and the Horgans, it's time to show up, and that could make this really interesting as regards Limerick being, I suppose, again, everyone, like, looking at Limerick for the last 4 or 5 years, unbeatable as regards in everyone's eyes, and 4 or 5 All-Irelands tells that story. But I think they appear human now, and yes, I said it, I suppose, a few minutes ago, I fancy them to win, which I do, but at the same time, they appear human, so I suppose that's where Cork have a chance to do something with the pace that they have.
And just on that as well, if Limerick are knocked out at the weekend and Cork knock them out, Cork are, like, really realistic All-Ireland contenders. Like, it's mad. Like, this flips on a coin. Like,
everyone is.
Yeah, there you go. Like, Limerick are gone. Any one of Tip, Clare,
Tipper back,
Cork, Kilkenny, Galway can win the All-Ireland. You know what I mean? Like, it's bizarre, boys, depending on what happens what happens on Sunday. It's and that's why, like, look at it this way. As I said to you, that Tipperary game in 18, Tip were knocked out, and then all of a sudden, like, we ended up having, champions that no one predicted in Limerick. It was anybody's All-Ireland after that, and it's the exact same on Sunday. But Cork will have to go and do the job, and they'll have to open another gear or a gear and a half on what we've seen so far this year. But is it in them potentially? And is I know it's a long way away. Is an All-Ireland in them potentially? Then if they are the ones to knock Limerick out, it could well be.